Greetings and salutations, everyone. My name is Andrew Kirchhoff, and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today, we're talking about my Week 8 tight end starter sits for the 2019 fantasy football season. On today's episode, we're going to be talking about the tight ends specifically, and we're going to be talking about their matchups going into Week 8 of the fantasy football season, then talking about my top 12 tight end rankings on the week, my tight end ones. Before we get into that, let me remind all of you, if you haven't yet already, click the subscribe button, join the community, get that cursor past cornerback Stephon Gilmore, and click that subscribe button. Also, don't forget to click the bell notification button to stay notified on my latest content. And also, don't forget, today, please click that like button. I do very much so appreciate it. Hey guys, how's it going? How's everyone doing? All right, so we're talking about the tight end position for Week 8. Interesting, the tight end position has not gone the way that many of us anticipated it going. Travis Kelce, Zach Ertz, George Kittle, they haven't been among the top end thus far this season. In half-point PPR scoring formats right now, the top 3 tight ends are Austin Hooper, Darren Waller, Travis Kelce. Sure, Kelce has been the number 3, but he's only 0.2 points ahead of Mark Andrews. And with the absence of potentially Patrick Mahomes for a couple weeks here, that could potentially hurt him in the long run. So just to kind of put that into everybody's on the same page here. It's pretty interesting how Darren Waller, Austin Hooper, 2 guys have been absolutely ridiculous thus far this season and made some pretty big performances as of late. But either way, let's talk about matchups like we typically do before we get into the rankings. All right, so here's the deal. Arizona Cardinals have been fantastic against opposing tight ends, but last week, somehow, some way, Evan Engram decided, I'm going to score 1 point. And Rhett Ellison, the backup, he's going to score the touchdown and get 10 points. But neither of us is going to have a ginormous game. That's extremely unfortunate. This week, the Arizona Cardinals take on Jared Cook and the Saints. I do not see Jared Cook potentially playing this week. I think he is probably leaning towards not playing. If that is the case and Jared Cook is not playing, you could potentially play Josh Hill, the backup tight end who did score this past week, or you could just say, forget about the matchup, I can go and pick up somebody else. But if Jared Cook wants to play, then he's in this conversation for top 12. He's not on today's list, but I wanted to go ahead and mention that because I'm assuming he could potentially miss this week. Moving on, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers get to take on another backup tight end. Delaney Walker left last week's game with an ankle injury. Jonnu Smith came in, was pretty productive. Jonnu Smith is a guy that played for the entirety of last season at the tight end position for this team, for the Tennessee Titans, because Delaney Walker missed the entire year with an Achilles injury. If, in fact, Delaney Walker is going to miss this week, Jonnu Smith has value and is on today's list. So, again, this is one of those matchups in which the tight end position has been extremely successful over the last couple of weeks. Opposing tight ends have always been good against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and it's something to key in on. Then we have the Steelers, the Seahawks, the Raiders, the Colts, Cowboys, Packers, Titans, Falcons. Obviously the Falcons, they can't stop anybody defensively, but who is Russell Wilson going to throw the ball to at the tight end position? I don't think Luke Wilson is the answer unless they go out and make a trade. The Titans, they give up a lot of points, but O.J. Howard has not practiced. He didn't practice today. Maybe Cameron Brate, potential option. The Packers playing against the Kansas City Chiefs, sure. Travis Kelce is a great tight end. One of the best, if not the best tight end in the National Football League. Unfortunately, does not have his quarterback there to feed him the rock like they have done earlier on in the season. You get the Cowboys on a bye week. The Indianapolis Colts get to play against Noah Fant. Noah Fant had the easiest matchup I've ever seen. He had so many easy targets sent his way, but he played like a rookie last week against the Chiefs. And then you have the Raiders playing against the Darren Fells led offense of, I don't even know. It's not Darren Fells led offense. It's really Darren Fells hopefully scoring a touchdown because that's the only way that he's relevant in fantasy for the Texans. And then you get the Seahawks playing against Austin Hooper, who's been the number 1 tight end, 101.6 points in half PPR, 46 receptions, 526 yards, and 4 touchdowns. Guy's been insane. And then the Steelers playing against Mike Gesicki, who, potentially Mike Gesicki could have a sneaky good week, but I doubt it. Nobody really is buying in on that kind of narrative. But anyway, those were the tight end matchups. As we all know, no matter what the matchup is, typically you're going to play your number 1 tight end and you're going to throw him out there. So let's just go over these rankings really quickly as we usually do. Pretty short video. And, I know many of you do have multiple tight ends. I will give you guys a little bit of perspective. As of right now, if I had 2 of the top 4 tight ends, I would consider playing one of the let's say, for example, I have Austin Hooper and George Kittle. I would consider playing Austin Hooper in my tight end spot and then George Kittle in my flex this week, because I do believe those four guys are so valuable right now at the tight end position that they can play as a flex spot, and they are as valuable as a lot of flex options, running backs, wide receivers in respective leagues, especially considering if it's a PPR format and these guys are continuing to see as many targets as they have. It's only going to help them going forward, and I think these are four prospects that can play in that flex spot for the tight end position as well. All right, anyway, let's talk about my top tight ends on the week. Number 1, Austin Hooper. Is it a surprise? It really shouldn't be. Even without Matt Ryan last week, Austin Hooper scored his touchdown in garbage time with Matt Schaub. The guy has been absolutely ridiculous, scoring 4 touchdowns thus far this season, but his target counts is something that we need to pay attention to. From the beginning of the season, his target counts have been insane. 9, 6, 7, 11, 9, 8. Only this past week was as low as ever with 5, yet he was still able to catch the ball 4 times, 46 yards and a touchdown, and find himself a fantasy relevant week in terms of points. This is just the mark of consistency. The guy has surpassed the double-digit scoring point mark. What is it? 6 of his 7 games thus far this season. He's been extremely efficient in Austin Hooper in an offense led by Dirk Cutter. I talked about it. I've talked about it many times, but I'll remind everybody. Dirk Cutter last season was the head coach of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. There's a reason why Cameron Brate and O.J. Howard were so successful last season, obviously before O.J. Howard's injury. And also, Dirk Cutter was the offensive coordinator of the Atlanta Falcons in 2012 when Tony Gonzalez was a part of this team, and Tony Gonzalez was fed the rock as a piece of this offense. So it's no surprise that the tight end position is so loved in this offense as of right now. All right, let's go ahead and talk about number 2, Darren Waller. You know what was hilarious? I may have jinxed a bunch of quarterbacks last week. I jinxed perhaps Patrick Mahomes. I jinxed Russell Wilson throwing his first interception. But then I said, watch Darren Waller catch his first touchdown this year, as I had him at my number 8, I think 8 or 7 ranked tight end last week. And next thing you know, Darren Waller's catching 3 touchdowns, 1 called back for a holding call. But dude has 126 receiving yards and 2 receiving touchdowns after the bye week on a monster performance against a pretty relatively good defense in the Green Bay Packers. Darren Waller is uneffing believable. The guy has been playing out of his mind. Even without scoring touchdowns in the first 5 weeks of the season, the dude has been one of the better tight ends. Now that you're getting him more implemented in the red zone, and he's becoming more and more of a vital threat for this offense. He just recently got paid. This is the tight end of the future for this offense. And as long as Derek Carr is in this offense and he's feeding the ball to Darren Waller, they want to feed tight ends here, and that's what they're going to continue to do. We saw last year with Jared Cook. Darren Waller going forward, no matter the matchup, should be great this week. He's my number 2. Moving on to number 3, George Kittle. George Kittle, the weather game really affected it. That's plain and simple. The fact that George Kittle was able to even score 5.3 fantasy points with that weather, that's insane altogether. I think going forward, the next couple matchups are, in my opinion, very easy. Just look at it down the slate. Carolina, sure. The linebackers who cover for Carolina are pretty good, but I do believe George Kittle is a good enough tight end. You get Arizona, Seattle, Arizona. Holy moly. Then you get Green Bay. Those 4 games, I'm telling you, George Kittle in the coming weeks is going to be ridiculous. I still believe he is the number 1 receiving option, even when they're bringing in Emmanuel Sanders in this offense. That being said, he's my number 3 on the week. All right, moving on to number 4, Hunter Henry. Hunter Henry, coming off of that injury, has been extremely consistent in the last couple weeks, has been, if not outside of Austin Eckler, the only other receiving option in this offense that has been as reliable in the last 2 weeks. A guy that has been very consistent. Let me find what is this? Hunter Henry. Where are you, buddy? Austin Eckler. Where are you? Oh my goodness. Am I going to actually lose you? There you are. Hunter Henry. Thank you very much. All right. Hunter Henry in the last couple of weeks. 9 targets, 8 targets. In the 2 games, 8 receptions, 6 receptions, 100 receiving yards, 97 receiving yards, 2 receiving touchdowns, obviously, in that game against Pittsburgh. The guy has been ridiculous. He needs to be in your lineup. He has been absolutely playing out of his mind in the last couple of weeks. And obviously, it's because of the fact that Keenan Allen has disappeared. Melvin Gordon isn't able to produce. The offensive line is in shambles. The fact of the matter is, Phillip Rivers needs to get the ball out of his hands. And often, Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, they're being pretty tightly covered. Hunter Henry's able to get out in the open, in the middle of the field, find himself for some production. He's been really ridiculously good coming off a knee injury. The guy's Superman. So as of right now, he's my number 4. Moving on to number 5, Evan Engram. Even though Evan Engram was not fantastic last week, to say the least, especially in one of the most beautiful matchups that you could have possibly imagined or kind of schemed together, there's a possibility that Evan Engram, he should be able to come back and have a bounce back week here, in my opinion. It was his first week back from his injury. I think as the weeks progress, he's going to continue to see more targets as he typically has in this offense. Evan Engram has been a guy with Daniel Jones, has been really, pretty good with Daniel Jones thus far this season. In the 3 games that he played fully, 8 targets, 7 targets, 11 targets. I think going forward, he's going to see more and more work in this offense. Sure, he had 5 targets last week, but only 1 reception. That's fine. That's fair. As long as he is getting the targets and it is going in his direction, eventually he's going to catch them and find fantasy relevance. He's my number 5 on this week, going against the Lions defense. All right, moving on to number 6, Travis Kelce. Again, even though Travis Kelce is without Patrick Mahomes, he is going to see targets. Matt Moore is going to feed him the ball. He is one of the better tight ends in the National Football League, and it is going to be difficult for linebackers to cover this guy, safeties to cover this guy. He's that good. So no matter what the quarterback situation is, I still do believe Travis Kelce is a play this week. If you have a better option, potentially the guys above him, go for it. But otherwise, Travis Kelce's in my lineup. He's my number 6. All right, moving on to number 7. All right, here's the thing about Travis. Like Travis Kelce could sit at 6, and I could confidently say I want to play him at 6. But Zach Ertz scares me because of Dallas Goedert. Zach Ertz is coming off of one of the most ridiculous seasons at the tight end position, having the most receptions at the tight end position in NFL history, breaking Jason Witten's record, and somewhat bringing Jason Witten back into the league because he felt the fire to come back and play. But Zach Ertz has seen nothing close to what he did last year and is yet still the number 6 tight end in fantasy and half-point PPR with the targets they're not there. For a guy like Zach Ertz to be relevant, the guy needs like 8, 9, 10 targets every single week, and he needs to be streamlined fed early in the game. The guy didn't see a reception until late in the 4th quarter in garbage time. That's exactly what we don't want to see as fantasy owners of Zach Ertz, a guy that has been so valuable in 2017 and 2018. Hopefully, Carson Wentz can feed this guy the ball. If he can't, then we're going to have troubles with having Zach Ertz as a top 7 option. But as of right now, I still trust the guy, and I think hopefully going into this week he can find some relevancy and catch a couple more passes, please, for the love of God. Moving on, let's talk about number 8, Eric Ebron. Again, when Eric Ebron gets more implemented in this offense, he is more of a receiving threat than he is a blocker, without a doubt. Jack Doyle is going to do all the blocking. He's going to slip out for some passes, but Eric Ebron is a receiving monster. He's a big body, big frame. All you have to do is find him in the red zone. He's going to find relevancy just like he did last week. And I think going forward, Eric Ebron in this matchup, a lot of people are going to be concerned of covering. Hey, we got to stop Zach Pascal. We got to stop the run game. We got to stop T.Y. Hilton. And there comes the Eric Ebron. I think going forward, yes, Eric Ebron has not been fantastic thus far this season, but as soon as you get him in the red zone and his offense is clicking, he becomes more of a viable threat. So as of right now, is my number 8. Pretty confident there. Moving on to number 9, Jimmy Graham. With Devontae Adams being out for the last couple of weeks, Jimmy Graham has seen more and more opportunity and has led to his success. That's exactly what we want to see. There's a reason why they brought him into this organization. It wasn't to sit him on the bench or keep him on the sideline. This is a guy that they need to use as a bigger body threat in the red zone, similar to Eric Ebron, a great receiving option especially, and a guy that is getting more and more snaps per game because of his ability to run block. That is also helping him out and making him more of a threat because he's on the field more often than not, and that's just going to lead to more targets going forward. All right, moving on to number 10, Gerald Everett. Has been really good in the last couple of weeks. Obviously had that one bum week, but it happens. But against the Bengals, very easy matchup. Everyone's going to be firing on all cylinders in this Rams offense, and I don't think that excludes Gerald Everett. I think going into this week should have himself a pretty decent matchup and play here. I mean, the last couple of weeks in terms of targets, 10 targets last week, which was great. The week before, even when he struggled, had 5 targets, only caught the ball twice. The week before that, 11 targets. The week before that, 8 targets. He is being more and more used in this offense. They are beginning to use more 11 personnel, which is 1 back, 1 tight end with the 3 wide receiver core that they typically use. which is absolutely fantastic for Gerald Everett. And even when, in fact, they need a blocking tight end, you don't have to worry about it because Tyler Higbee will come in and Gerald Everett will leak out and catch balls. And that is what he's been doing, and that's why he's been so great. As of right now, as the number 10 spot, don't mind him at all. Moving on to number 11, Greg Olsen. Olsen has been okay. Obviously, I think Greg Olsen has been a better receiving option with Cam Newton. We typically have seen that. But, a couple weeks ago, we saw a little bit of a average Greg Olsen. The guy was in the booth, I think, this past week for the – was it the Cardinals-Giants game that he was in the booth announcing that game? It's insane, right? This guy has his hands in multiple hats, and I think it's probably his last year. I think this week he has value because of the name. I think more than anything, Greg Olsen has value because this defense is very good. They're going to have to get the ball out of their hands. Christian McCaffrey, Greg Olsen, guys that are closer to the line of scrimmage are going to be utilized more, and I think he could find some value here in Week 8 against the 49ers. It's going to be tough, but overall, he should be fine as a tight end option on the week. All right, moving on to the last option that I wanted to mention, Jonnu Smith. If, again, like I mentioned a little bit earlier, if Delanie Walker's out this week, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have given up the second most points to opposing tight ends thus far this season. Jonnu Smith has been a good tight end. In the past, we have seen him as an athletic body run around, make plays in open field, and be able to be a productive piece of this offense wherever they line him up. So I think in this week, there's a good opportunity that Jonnu Smith, if in fact other tight ends are hurt or out, could be a pretty decent pickup and play if you're a Mark Andrews owner and you're looking for somebody to pick up and play and nothing is on the screen is available otherwise. All right, guys, that is it. Thank you everybody for watching. Those are the top. What is this? How many? 12 tight end rankings on my week for Week 8. Here we go. Thank you everybody for watching. Don't forget Sunday morning, 8:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. We will be live streaming with updated rankings. That's why rankings are always subject to change, etc. What the heck was that? And you got I don't know why I didn't have it like that. Whatever. I don't care. Regardless, thank you everybody for watching. Next time, tomorrow, we'll figure out what we're doing. There'll definitely be a video tomorrow. But until then, thank you everybody for watching. And until then, I'll see you guys. Don't forget, subscribe, like the channel, comment down below. Somebody down there will answer you. If you haven't yet already, click my Patreon link. Go check that out for all of your 2019 fantasy football questions that need to be answered. Thank you again, and I'll see you guys. Peace.